Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to create a Valentine's Day look because we're in February now and Valentine's Day is just around the corner. So I actually grabbed two palettes for this look. I grabbed the Garnet palette from BH Cosmetics Birthstone series and I grabbed the Haute palette from ColourPop. You could pretty much do this look with only two Haute. There's just one shadow and it's a brown. So if you have a brown anywhere else in your collection, grab that one and you can create this look. So if you'd like to see how I did this using these two palettes, then stick around and I'll show you. And if you haven't been here before, hello, welcome. My name is Rachel. I am a homeschooling stay-at-home mom who loves to play with colorful eyeshadow. I just love the creative expression of color on my eyes. And if you like that too, if you enjoy tutorials and other videos around eyeshadow, then please consider liking and subscribing. Comment below with what you might like to see. Let me know what you think of the videos. I do try to upload about 3 a week, and you can find me on Instagram at Shimmers and Silver. So without further ado, let's start this eye look. Let's get started. I am grabbing the NYX primer in white as my eye primer because I am using ColourPop shadows and they don't usually crease on me very badly. So if I have a shadow that creases really badly on me, usually more of the putty formula rather than a powder formula, I prefer to use the Glam Light Icing Primer. But ColourPop has more powdery formulas, and so their shimmer shadows especially do not crease on me particularly badly. So I'm just using up this primer. My dog is so funny. She'll go to one end of the house, pick up some pieces of her food out of her bowl, and then carry them in her mouth to a different part of the house to eat them there. I don't really understand why. Currently she has trekked from the kitchen all the way to like the front door, and I can hear her munching on little pieces of food at the front door. But I don't know why she does that. It's bizarre. It seems very random to me. Sometimes she'll do it. She'll bring her food pieces over to the dining room table. And I figure, well, maybe she understands that that's where we eat, so she wants to be there. I don't know. It's random. It's cute and endearing, but it's also random. Okay, so for today's Valentine's look, I have chosen to use two different palettes. There's the Haute palette from ColourPop's Comin' in Haute collection, I think it was called, or Too Haute to Handle. I think it was Comin' in Haute. And then there's the Garnet palette from BH Cosmetics Birthstone series. And honestly, today's look, if you only have the Haute palette, you can pretty much achieve the look. I'm going to be grabbing a couple shades from Garnet, but you don't need to have the Garnet palette to make today's look work. I am going to start with a medium blending brush, and I'm dipping into the shade 2 AM. This lovely bubblegum pink. I'm going to use this as a transition color, place that starting in my crease, but I'm going to carry it through the crease towards the inner corner. I think my brush was dirty. I'm taking a brand new, fresh, clean brush. Same, this one's actually a little bit bigger than that, but it's still a medium-sized blending brush. That's better. So I'm gonna start by winging out the color like I prefer, in like the cat eye shape. Then just pulling it through. And I'm blending it up to the brow bone really gently. I'm mainly just, I'm working it through the crease, but this is gonna be an almost all over color. I'm not putting it all over the lid, although some is getting onto the lid because of how the bristles sort of splay out. But I've got it blended through my whole crease and up towards the brow bone. Now I'm going to take a detail crease brush from e.l.f. This one has a slight pinch on one side, so it has like a very, very slight U shape. And I'm going to dip into the shade Flirt, which is this one right here. So I'm going to hold that U-shaped brush so that it works in the arch of my crease, and I'm going to try to focus this shade kind of on the outer half. I do not want to bring this one all the way in. So I'm just tapping it in place where I want it to be, and then blending it out from there. This is a really nice pink shade. These colors, especially this one, will probably stain your lids. They definitely stain my lids. That doesn't really bother me because the next eyeshadow look I do, I just put primer over the staining, and between that and the shadows, it all gets covered up. Okay, my next step involves dipping into the Garnet palette. I'm going to take a small blending brush and dip into the shade Go Getter. This is the point which you could still use your Haute palette. Just dip into this red shade here, which is called West End. It's not as red as the Garnet red, but it definitely has some more reddish pigment to it. So I'm going to dip into Go Getter in the Garnet palette using this brush. And I'm going to use that to deepen out the outer corner, just add a little bit more of a red look to these pink tones. So I was thinking about the history of Valentine's Day. I meant to look it up to be able to give you a much more full, well-rounded picture, but I didn't really have much time for that. So I'm just going to tell you what I know. A lot of stories about Valentine's Day involve a man named Valentine marrying lovers who had been jailed for religious beliefs or who had been married under Christian law or something like that and were then jailed. Either him marrying lovers or passing notes between lovers who were in jail, things like that. And it's a very sweet romantic story. But as far as I can tell, according to a group of Belgian monks who have spent centuries looking into the history of the saints and what the truth is behind their stories, that story does not seem to be true. Apparently there were possibly 3 Saint Valentines. Back into my blending brush to soften these colors together. 3 Saint Valentines, and we actually end up on February 14th celebrating the day that some of them were killed. And they weren't really proponents of love or romanticism. They weren't little cupids flying around marrying people in jail. All of that is folklore. So I think that's so interesting because Valentine's Day is very much a Hallmark holiday, you know? It is nice to take some time and celebrate love and all the warm fuzzies, but it's really a Hallmark holiday. It's become culturally expected that you're gonna get flowers or chocolates or cards, and it's just very commercialized. But I think that the actual truth about it is, again, the small snippet that I know is funny because I read one article that was talking about how we went from beheading to betrothing because the Saint Valentines whom we know about, a lot of them were executed by beheading. And I don't know, I just think it's funny. I think it's ironic. I do appreciate some really good examples of irony. I love these colors together. These colors are so pretty together. Okay, now this is the part where if you have any darker brown tones in your collection or even a black, totally could do this step. In the Garnet palette, I'm going to take the same brush and dip into the shade Works It, which is the darker of the 2 browns. I'm not going in heavy. And I'm just going to use that to further deepen out the outer corner. You could do this with, I mean, most people have, I don't. Most people have some sort of neutral palette in their collection. So you can grab really any darker brown shade for this. You could grab a black, you could grab a very dark purple. That would be nice too. Anything like that. Just something to add a little more depth in that outer area. And you can see I'm not going in heavy. I just tapped in really lightly. And now I'm taking my blending brush and just working it all together. I do really like these colors together. It's funny because I never thought that red and pink really looked good together. I would always see them on Valentine's Day cards and I'm like, they don't look good together. They're too close, you know? Too close but different enough. Well, red and pink is Angelica Nyquist's favorite color combination, and I've seen her do it in a couple different videos. I'm like, okay, she makes it work. How does she make it work? Like, what's different about what she's doing that makes it work? And I think particularly in the realm of eyeshadow, red eyeshadows are, when you go in lightly with them, they tend to be more pink because a lighter version of red is pink. And so I think it's all about the shades that you choose. Like if I had used the Wilderness palette reds instead of this Garnet palette, I would get totally different look, and it might not work as well with these bubblegummy pinks of the Haute palette. There are 2 reds in Wilderness. One is called Poppy and one is called Raw. Poppy is more orangey yellow based and Raw is more blue based. So Raw might work, but still it has like a more earthy undertone, and I don't think it would look good with all these hot bubblegum pinks. So it might just be a matter of the color selection. This is pretty. I feel like I have a line right here. I am now going to take a flat shader brush or a flat C brush. I'm gonna dip into the shade Lol, no, here. I'm gonna dip into the shadow and then spray my brush. Generally, I find that ColourPop shimmers work quite nicely with my finger. And you could totally use your finger for this. Because it's not extremely specific application, you could easily dip into the shadow with your finger and then just place it on your lid. But I decided to use a brush today. So I'm going in with a brush. I'm gonna place it in the inner corner of my lid and work its way out towards those darker shades. And because I have a brush, I'll just go through the motion of doing a little cut crease here. It's not gonna show up very much because I don't have a very dark color in my crease, but it just, you know, makes it a little more tidy than a finger application can do. For today's look, it really doesn't matter either way. This pink shimmer has more of a peachy undertone to it, whereas the other pink shimmer in the palette has definitely more of a pink undertone. They're both really pretty though. At first I thought when I got the palette that they were just too similar. And I would say if they had put more of a reddish shimmer in the palette, that would have been more interesting and maybe perhaps a better choice. But because these do have quite different undertones, it's still nice. Now I'm going back into the Garnet palette. I'm gonna take the same brush and dip into the Garnet shade. If you don't have the Garnet palette, then you can dip into the pink shade, which is called the Ivy. But because I've got Garnet and I want to keep this a little bit interesting, I'm dipping into the Garnet shade and spraying my brush. And then I'm going to place this, in case you haven't guessed, on that transition point between the two shadows. So between the shimmer and the matte, it's going to go right here. And that just makes it a tiny bit more interesting. Honestly, the shimmer Garnet shade in the Garnet palette is not really a very red shimmer. I find it to be a little bit more of a pink shimmer. And so it works really nicely with this look. That's really pretty. I like that. Now I'm grabbing my blending brush again and just tapping over it really quickly to make sure everything's... I just threw my brush. And funnily enough, it landed exactly where I've been keeping it the whole video. So that's awesome. I just went in with the blending brush to make sure that everything was working out nice. Now I just want to soften these lines right here. So I'm taking a very, very loose detail crease brush from e.l.f. and I'm just kind of going over those edges a bit. I want to smoke it out a little bit. I think that's pretty. I'm going to take some concealer, brighten up under my eyes, and I'll be back to do the lower lash line. Lower lash line, I'm taking that small pencil brush again, dipping into the shade Flirt here. I'm going to run this on my lower lash line, starting in the outer corner, meeting up with my shadows out here. And I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way in. This is like everything that I want a pink shadow to be. It's almost got like a berry sort of undertone to it. It's pink, but it's not bubblegum or hot pink. It's got some purple in it, but not too much purple. It's pigmented, it performs nicely. It's just a really pretty pink shadow. And I like it. This time we'll stay in the Haute palette. Just for convenience sake, I'm gonna take a smudger brush, dip into the shade West End. If you want to, and you have the Garnet palette, you could either use the Go Getter shade for this, or you could combine this with one of the darker shadows, but I decided not to. I decided to just keep it like this. I'm gonna put that on my outer corner only. I've discovered that I'm liking using a smudger brush on my lower lash line more than I used to. Like I used to only use the small blending brush, but I prefer the smudger brush generally because it gives me more precision and focuses that shadow in a smaller space. Whereas the blending brush, because it's small and because it's loose, it sort of flares out a bit, and your shadow, if you want a really smoky look, then that's a great option. If you want a very like a blown out look, or throw down like a transition color that just fades off into nothing, then that's a good option as well. But if you want to lay down a bright color and you don't want it to be a very thick line of color on the lower lash line, then a smudger brush is a good option. So for a while I considered buying the Lala pink palette from ColourPop, and I finally decided not to because at the time I also had Strawberry Squeeze and Watermelon Slice, and I just didn't need another pink palette. I ended up decluttering both of those other palettes, but instead of buying Ooh La La, I bought this Haute palette, and it is just, for me, a perfect fit because it's not as many shades as a 9-pan, but I'd still get really good shadows in enough variety, and it scratches that hot pink itch that I had. Saying hot pink itch definitely makes it sound like I have a rash. Alright, now I am taking a different small blending brush. I'm dipping into the Garnet palette, into the shade Productive AF. This is a beautiful, beautiful white shimmer shadow. If you don't have the Garnet palette and you're just using Haute, then I would say use the shade Lol No, which is the lighter of the pinks, which is the shadow that we put on our lid. But because I have Garnet, or honestly, you could use any white shimmer. Like if you have Passion Paris, use the Louvre color. Blueberry Muffin has a really nice white shimmer. I forget what it's called. But there are, like, just grab a nice white shimmer and that'll do the trick. I've dipped into the pan, and now I'm going to spray my brush. And I'm gonna place this as my inner corner highlight. Look at that. Look at that, it's so pretty. Inner corner highlight, and then I'm gonna drag it down the lower lash line to meet that pink shadow that we placed. I'm telling you, I adore this white shimmer. It is so gorgeous. I'm just putting it everywhere. Just want it everywhere. Okay, so now for a waterline color. I do have a couple of different pink eyeliners, but I think I want to use white. So I'm just grabbing a white eyeliner. All of my liners are ColourPop except for like the white and the black ones. I'm going to place that on my lower waterline. Because of the pink shadows that are on the lower lash line, there's some fallout into the waterline, and that's making the waterline color look more pink. So now and then I just wipe it off on my hand because the tip gets dirty, and then I go back in. So my method is, if I go back and forth, I end up dragging the pink further into the white. So I have been like working in the white area and then just doing one swipe all the way along the lower waterline up into the corner, and it takes the white and pulls it over the pink instead. But I've definitely got like a white and pink blend of kohl eyeliner going on in my hand over here. I think that's really pretty. I'm gonna go off camera and do a black eyeliner. I almost always do a wing. I'll throw on some mascara. I don't have false lashes, and then I'll be back to show you the end result. Alright guys, here's my finished look. I did do my plan, which was eyeliner and mascara. I kind of went all out today. I even put on some blush and bronzer and face highlighter, and honestly that's 3 steps more than I usually do. So this is my 2022 Valentine's Day look. I think it's really beautiful. I have to say I'm loving these 2 palettes together, and I have to credit Angelica Nyquist with my inspiration for combining pink and red, because it's a combo I probably wouldn't have tried by myself, but when I've seen it done well, it makes me think maybe I can do it well. And I think this is a beautiful eyeshadow look. So thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this look as much as I do, and I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Until we see each other again, have a great day. Bye! That's right. 5 times 5 equals 25, so the square root of 25 is 5. Good job.
I thought that's what
I think they're just
I'm trying to unsleep them.
unasleep them. You mean wake them up?
Yeah. Unsleep them.
I think wake up is a more standard term for unasleep.
Yeah.